Hey, it's Steve Marshall from Jenny and Friends here, Cozy 101.1, and I'm sitting with Dr. Kohli, the 9 News medical expert. She's also at the Cherry Creek Heart in Aurora. Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
All right, here we are, summertime. Sunscreen has been a big thing for years, but the FDA just approved something new. What's going on?
This is very exciting. In fact, the dermatologists are having champagne parties all over the country because they're so excited. This has been 20 years in the making. It's been 20 to 30 years since the FDA has approved a new ingredient in sunscreen.
Wow.
And it's called bemotrizinol, and BEMT is kind of the short abbreviation for it. And it's been used in Europe and Asia and Australia for the last several decades. We just haven't brought it here to the United States. And so if we think about what we have available here in the United States, we have two types of UV rays we have to protect ourselves from, right? Mm-hmm. UVA. So the way I remember the difference, A is for aging, and UVB, B is for burns. But both of them can cause skin cancer. So UVA and B is what we really want, a broad spectrum protection. And then we have two options if we go to Target or the drugstore when it comes to sunscreen. So the first is called mineral sunscreen. That's a sunscreen that sits on top of the skin. That's that white pasty sunscreen. Right. Mineral sunscreen, zinc oxide or titanium dioxide. It doesn't absorb into the skin, and it's got broad protection, but as you can imagine, it leaves that kind of white cast on the skin. And for me, it's always getting in the car. Right. When I open the door or whatever, there's like sunscreen paste all over my car. So that's a problem. The other one, which is a chemical sunscreen, is designed to absorb into the skin, but that's one of the problems with it. There's concern that it absorbs too much into the skin, especially for our kids, and usually only protects against A or B, and you have to mix two of them together in order to get broad protection. So this bemotrizinol, which is this new ingredient, not only doesn't absorb into the skin, it's very photostable, which means it doesn't break down in the sun, so you don't have to reapply it nearly as often. Oh,
that's fun.
And it causes less irritation.
Well, that's a plus. That's a good thing. Is there a difference between the spray-ons and the slather-ons? Because I've heard there is, that the slathers are much better. Yes,
that's right. So really what you want to do, and this is kind of hard to do, even for me, if you're slathering on, you want to use a golf ball-sized amount of sunscreen for your body. And again, because it doesn't absorb, it's sort of sitting on top of the skin. Right. The spray-ons can have propellants and other such things, especially if you're using not the mineral, but the chemical sunscreen, and that doesn't absorb as well. We also tend to under-apply those, right? Because you're just squirting it rather than really rubbing it on like a lotion, so they don't offer complete protection if you're not applying a thick enough layer.
So this new stuff, how's it made? How do they do this new, whatever they just approved?
It was just synthetically made in the lab in the late 1990s. It was designed to be the sort of designer sunscreen that does everything, protects against A and B, doesn't break down in the sun, and doesn't absorb into the skin, and doesn't leave that white cast. But even though we developed it in the late 90s, the FDA has been dragging their feet for the last 2.5 decades in terms of getting it approved, and it really does reflect all the red tape when it comes to this type of a thing. Now, the good news is we got great safety data coming out of Europe, Asia, Australia, where they've been using it for the last 2-3 decades with really no safety signals at all. So that has helped, and this is the first time they've done an expedited approval for something. So hopefully it's opened the door for other such over-the-counter things to get approved more quickly. But this was initially developed by a cosmetics company to really be sort of a cosmetic. It doesn't cause the irritation of the skin either.
And especially living where we live, we should be wearing sunscreen often, if not daily, correct?
That's exactly right. And I think for us as Coloradans, because we have such a high rate of skin cancer here, obviously more UV protection, Mile High City, but also the mountains, it's really, really important for us to do this. So I know for me, I'm really excited about switching my sunscreen, which has been mineral, and I have to really rub and get that white cast all day long, to this bemotrizinol once it comes out around December or so. So we really want people to start looking at the ingredients in their sunscreens and kind of see whether or not this makes it to the shelves. And if it does, really think about switching your sunscreens to this.
Excellent.
Yes.
The new plan for summer's upcoming. Thank you very much for coming by. Wear sunscreen.